They found the boy buried alive beneath the church floorboards, his eyes wide open, whispering in Latin to something no one could see. This is where our story begins, in a place where faith and fear are about to collide. Father Marcus had served St. Augustine's parish for 32 years. He'd heard confessions that would make demons weep, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared him for the night the floorboards began to whisper. It started subtly with a strange mix of wet soil and something ancient, something decaying rising from the very foundation of the chapel. Then came the scratching. This wasn't the sound of rats or termites. This was deliberate, focused, almost pleading. The church was old, a relic built atop a forgotten cemetery. All the records were lost to time, the graves unmarked and anonymous. But when the grand marble altar itself began to bleed from its base, staining the sacred stone with a dark, viscous fluid, Marcus knew this wasn't just history clawing its way back. This was something else, something active. He had no choice. He ordered the floor torn up. Beneath the layers of rotting wood and packed earth, they found him. A boy, no older than 10, his skin as pale as wax, his lips moving ceaselessly, forming words in a dead language, Latin, an ancient, forbidden dialect that hadn't been spoken for centuries. The most disturbing part, the boy's eyes were wide open. He hadn't blinked in hours, his gaze fixed on something in the empty air above him. The local authorities were baffled, so they called in an expert, Dr. Evelyn Cross, a linguist specializing in pre-Vatican texts, arrived with a satchel full of dusty tomes and hands that couldn't stop trembling. As she listened, her face grew paler with every syllable the boy uttered. The whispers weren't random. They matched a passage from the Codex Maleficarum, a banned manuscript so dangerous it was believed to summon what it called the First Omen, a harbinger of irreversible damnation. The passage was terrifyingly specific. It spoke of a child born in silence, buried in consecrated ground, who would awaken when the veil between worlds thinned, an event that was prophesied to occur on a very specific night, Halloween, under the light of a blood moon, during midnight mass. Evelyn looked at Marcus, her voice barely a whisper. "Father," she warned, "if this is the First Omen, then the boy isn't possessed. He's a vessel, a gateway. And something is trying to come through." Marcus, a man of unwavering faith, couldn't accept it. "He's just a child," he said, dismissing her fears as academic paranoia. But that very night, his conviction was shattered. The boy, who had been sitting listlessly in a pew, suddenly stood up, walked to the altar, and let out a scream. It wasn't the scream of a child. It was a sound that resonated with unnatural power, a shriek that vibrated through the very stones of the church and shattered the century-old stained glass windows into a million pieces. The next morning, an eerie silence had fallen over St. Augustine's. The parish choir, scheduled for their morning practice, had vanished. Their robes were found neatly folded in the pews, some of them still warm to the touch. But there were no people, no blood, no signs of a struggle. Just an unnerving, complete silence where their voices should have been. A cold dread creeping into his heart, Marcus searched the church, his voice echoing in the emptiness as he called their names. He checked the confessional, hoping to find someone, anyone, and he did. He found Sister Agnes. Her mouth had been grotesquely sewn shut with the wire from her own rosary. Her eyes her eyes had been gouged out and replaced with communion wafers. In the front row of the now empty church, the boy sat, humming. It was a hymn, but one so ancient it hadn't been sung in centuries. Just then, the church doors flew open. It was Evelyn, her face pale and frantic. She clutched the codex to her chest. "I've translated more," she gasped. "The codex says the First Omen feeds on faith. It doesn't just destroy bodies. It erases belief itself. It devours devotion. And it always starts with silence." The day faded into a blood-red evening. Halloween had arrived. The foretold blood moon rose in the sky, casting a sickening crimson glow over the world. Marcus, his faith now hanging by a thread, prepared for midnight mass. But as the clock struck 12, the church remained empty. No congregation, no choir. There was just the boy, now standing behind the pulpit, impossibly dressed in a set of priest's robes that seemed to fit him perfectly. He began the sermon. The words that came from his mouth were Latin, but twisted, malevolent. As he spoke, the very walls of the church began to bleed scripture, dark liquid forming letters on the stone. The statues of the saints began to weep tears of ash. High above the altar, the main crucifix violently inverted itself and cracked down the middle. Evelyn burst in, holding the open codex. "We have to seal him back," she screamed over the unholy sermon. He was buried for a reason, but it was too late. The boy's voice began to change, deepening, layering with the whispers of thousands of lost souls. "You cannot bury what was promised," it thundered. The ground beneath the altar split open, and from the fissure, hands began to emerge. Hands that were charred, clawed, and ancient, reaching from the darkness below. The First Omen had arrived. Marcus tried to pray, to utter the rites of exorcism, but the holy words turned to buzzing insects in his mouth, choking him. Evelyn stood her ground, her voice trembling as she read the counter-ritual from the Codex. Latin verses of protection clashed against the boy's demonic incantations. The entire church shook as if in the grip of a violent earthquake. Candles exploded into showers of sparks. The grand pipe organ began to play itself, screaming a horrifying melody in reverse. And then, as suddenly as it began, there was silence. The boy collapsed to the floor. The reaching hands retreated back into the earth. The altar, now shattered, revealed a pit of endless, silent night. Cautiously, Evelyn approached the boy's still form. Is it ... is it over?" she asked, her voice shaking. He opened his eyes, and they were the eyes of a normal 10-year-old boy again. But his words were anything but. This, he whispered, was only the first. Evelyn felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of the church. She looked down at the floor, and her heart stopped. Her shadow was gone. 3 days later, a strange phenomenon occurred across the city. At the stroke of midnight, every single church bell began to ring in unison. No one had touched them. And beneath each and every bell tower, a single child was found waiting, eyes wide open, whispering in Latin. Thank you so much for joining me on this terrifying journey. If you enjoy stories that crawl under your skin and stay there, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because the darkness is just getting started. I'll see you in the next one.